Well, almost everybody on the left supports banning so-called assault weapons these days, so some are going even further. Well, CNN's Chris Cuomo says it is not happening. More and more of them really are calling for a total repeal of the Second Amendment. Don't worry, that's not a gun ban, they say. It would just make it possible for us to ban guns later if we needed to. Jumaane Williams is a New York City councilman. He's running for lieutenant governor of the state of New York. He's a frequent guest on the show, and we're happy he is. Mr. Williams, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on again.
So I've been trying, one of the reasons I'm so glad you're here is because I know that you're an honest man. I'm trying to get to the core of what this means. I keep hearing people on television tell me that we need an assault weapons ban, and that if I complain about it, I don't like children or something, I'm bad. Oh, fine, that's fine, but just tell me what you're calling for. So there are tens of millions of semi-automatic rifles in circulation. They're already in people's homes. Would those be included in the ban? Would people have to turn their guns in or not?
Well, this is not about turning guns in. Most importantly, this is not about finding one thing that's going to solve the problem. I do believe it is a complex problem, so we need a complex solution, both on dealing with the supply and access to guns and the demand issues that most people like to speak about. What is the cause of violence? We need solutions to both of those. And when I think of assault weapon bans, I think of semi-automatic weapons that have high-capacity ammunitions that are made for rapid fire and possibly combat use.
Okay, right. You basically said what everyone is saying, but I just want to drill down on the specifics of one piece of it, and I'm not suggesting this is your whole response to violence, but it's part of it, this assault weapons ban. What does that mean? So you've got tens of millions of semi-automatic weapons that are already in circulation. People already have them. So you could stop all sales tomorrow, but you still have tens of millions of these guns. What do you do with those? Do you not do anything about them, or do you do something about them?
But what I like to do is, it's easy to go to the point that would cause the most consternation to folks. And so what I've said is this is not about getting the guns from the people who are in their homes currently at this moment in time. What we want to do is prevent these sales from moving forward. I think.
Okay, but hold on. I'm not trying. Look, this is the core of the question. If you think that guns are causing violence, and there's literally no social science that shows that, but if we're going to pretend that guns are the problem, and I guess we are, then you have to answer what to do about the guns.
Well, I disagree. There is a lot of data that shows that.
But I'm conceding that. I'm playing along with the fantasy that guns are the problem, just for the purposes of the debate.
Part of the problem is.
Yeah, okay. But what do you do with them?
But
so you say at some future date, I mean, what does that mean?
Well, I disagree with what the core of the question is. Last time I was on the show, there was agreement that we should not have unfettered access to guns. The next logical question is there too much access to guns? And if the answer is yes, then we collectively should speak about what to do with it. What often happens when we come here is we drill down on one thing as if one thing will either cause or perpetuate it to go.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, we've already had an assault weapons ban that didn't work, so we know it's not going to work.
Well, that's not true. That's not true at all. The data,
it actually is a factual matter. It's true, but in the fantasy land of the gun control.
From 2004, there were about 89 deaths from massacres. After they expired, from the next 10 years, not including the Parkland or Vegas, there were about 300 incidents from massacres.
But the murder rate didn't move. The rate of people killed by firearms of all kinds did not change at all. That's not my opinion. It's a fact. I was there. I covered it, actually.
But the data I just said is also true. The amount of people who were killed by assault.
The bottom line is how many people die, and it didn't save any lives.
And I'm also... Sure,
but hold on, I want to know what it means. So you've got hundreds of millions of high-capacity magazines, clips that hold bullets.
But I already answered that question. You want to continue to drill down?
I haven't. I want specifics because I'm an American citizen and adult.
What I said to you was trying to prevent future sales of these weapons. What you want to do is pinpoint. But I've already said I'm not focused on that. I'm focused on...
What do you mean not focused? So at no point, if there are hundreds of millions of high-capacity magazines, you could ban sale today and it would not affect the outcome at all, because hundreds of millions is a lot.
Yeah, I
so would you do anything about
Are you saying that those hundreds of millions are a problem? Are you saying those hundreds of millions are an issue?
I don't think they are, because I think guns are inanimate objects that don't shoot people on their own.
I consistently concede that there are other things that help move the gun violence.
But are you going to answer the question?
But you don't concede that guns are actually a part of the gun
You're running for office. I'm just a hack journalist trying to get a straight answer.
No,
you're trying to be in control of a state.
Do you agree that guns are a part of gun violence
I just
problem?
want to know what you're going to do with the magazines.
Like, that's
that
a
are
question
out
you
there.
won't answer. And that's
No,
why
of course I'll answer it. I've said it 10 times. Guns are tools. When they're misused, they hurt people.
Do you think guns are a part of the gun violence problem that we have to address?
I'm not getting anywhere, but I'm trying. Good luck.
I answered the question. I hope you answer mine one day.
Okay.
Have
Good
a
to see
great
you, Councilman. Thanks. Well, we learned this week that CNN executives are assiduous viewers of this show, and of course we're flattered. We know that because CNN has announced that actually it may not be a good idea to support foreign dictatorships. Last week we told you about CNN Turk. That's a channel in Turkey, a CNN franchise that has for years repeated the political talking points of Turkey's authoritarian, anti-American Islamist government. Mr. Erdogan in the picture right behind me. Well, now in a deal worth more than $900 million, a major stake in CNN Turk is about to be sold to a conglomerate whose head has literally referred to Erdogan as his boss. CNN and Erdogan in business together. Well, now in a rare fit of conscience, CNN says it may reconsider its association with anti-American foreign autocrats since they've been caught. In a statement to Fox, the network said this, quote, "We will be meeting with the new owners in due course to discuss the implications of the sale. If following those conversations we have any reason whatsoever to believe the journalistic integrity of the channel could be compromised by the new owners, we'll revoke the license." Which is funny, since CNN Turk for years has been carrying water for the Erdogan government, even as it beat and killed protesters in the streets. CNN has been carrying its water, showing at one point a Penguin documentary rather than the repressive crackdown by the Turkish secret police. Anyway, we're glad CNN is watching this show. We welcome this development. And in the future, of course, we encourage CNN to care about journalistic integrity even before they're called out for backing dictators. Well, the FBI ignored warnings about Nicholas Cruz in Florida. In Garland, Texas, an agent directly assisted Islamic extremists who attempted to commit a massacre. Now it turns out that the FBI recruited the father of Pulse nightclub shooter Omar Mateen as an informant. And yet, somehow, despite that, they didn't notice that Mateen was plotting this massacre, they say. They covered up that failure for nearly 2 years. Glenn Greenwald is the co-founder of The Intercept. He joins us tonight. Glenn, you've written a bunch of stories on this, and at first I wondered why, because it seemed like a pretty straightforward story. I thought we knew kind of what we were going to know, but you were right. There was a lot we didn't know. Tell us what we didn't know about this massacre.
The primary narrative that the media circulated pretty much until this minute is totally false, namely that Omar Mateen went into Pulse with the intention to target gay people. Lots of people love this narrative. The right loved it because they like to depict Muslims as being incompatible with the West and hating gays. The left loved it because it put LGBTs as the victim of a hate crime. The security state loved it because they like to pretend they defend liberalism with the CIA and the FBI. The reality is that he had never been to Pulse. He had gone to multiple other locations in the days leading up to the attack and on that day that had nothing to do with the gay community. Disney, other places that he had judged were too fortified by security. And he chose Pulse randomly by entering Google and asking, what is a Orlando downtown nightclub? The evidence is overwhelming that he was motivated, not anything to do with gays, but by what he said during the entire attack, which was it was being done in retaliation for what he perceived as 15 years of U.S. killing of Muslims,
yes,
women and children who are innocent in Muslim countries.
Interesting. Now we learn that his father was an FBI informant. This fits a pattern with these massacres, and I don't think we know enough to really understand what it means, but tell us what we do know about this.
Well, so the FBI has been caught lying repeatedly throughout this case. The day after the Pulse attack, they detained his wife for 17 hours. She had a small infant. She has a very low IQ. And they got her to sign a statement that was filled with false claims, including the fact that she had gone to Pulse with her husband to case it. They investigated it, and they determined, the FBI did, that she had never been to Pulse. They got her to sign a false statement by threatening they would take away her child, by playing on her vulnerabilities, and they hid from the court the fact that many of the key statements, the incriminating ones that they got her to sign, were false. What they also hid, not just from the court, but from her lawyers was this critical fact, namely that Omar Mateen's father, who they had planned to call as a witness, was working as an informant very closely with the FBI for 11 years, from 2005 to 2016. The FBI had twice investigated Omar Mateen after he was boasting about having connections to terrorism, and they decided they wouldn't investigate him further. They weren't going to arrest him. They weren't going to do anything. Jim Comey said, we're going to provide an explanation about why we made that choice. To date, they've never done so. When we called them for comment, they refused. And as it turns out, they were talking to their informant during the time they were investigating Omar Mateen. It's pretty clear that they decided not to arrest him because they were working so closely with his father, a fact, as you said, that they concealed from everybody until just a couple days ago.
That is... It's just I mean, you or I lie to the FBI, we're charged with a felony. They lie to us. It's no big deal. So you're wearing a remembrance on your lapel for a Rio de Janeiro City Council member shot after advocating there. That's a really interesting story. We're out of time, but we're going to tweet out a link to that story. You've written about it a lot on The Intercept, and I think it's worth our viewers hearing about. Thanks a lot for joining us tonight, Glenn.